This is the Rocket City Retirement Show with Cris Wallace. Cris loves educating people in person and over the airwaves. Whether it's retirement planning, investing, tax, or legacy, Cris prides himself in helping protect what matters to you. This is the Rocket City Retirement Show.
Hi, I'm Luann Fulmer, and I just want to welcome you to our show. This is the Rocket City Retirement Show with my friend and certified financial planner, Cris Wallace. He's president of WG Financial Group, and then also joining us from the firm, Graham Bauer, Richard Constantine. So excited to have them join us today. All are going to give us some helpful advice about retirement planning, so I'm excited to get started. So here's the phone number, okay? 256-937-2010. That's the way to reach Cris. Complimentary. Go in and see him for a complimentary visit. A discovery visit is what we call it. You can call or text visit to 256-937-2010. Remember, you can always check us out on Facebook during the week, WG Financial Group 256. Our show is also available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. All you have to do is just search for the name of our show, the Rocket City Retirement Show. And remember, our motto is plan, retire, and play. And that is our dream for you. Check us out at WGFinancialGroup.com. So, gosh, all that out of the way. Now I can say hello to you, Cris.
Hello to you, Luann. I was wondering when you were going to wrap all that up.
Just going and going, I know. And Graham, hello to you.
Hello, Luann.
And hello, Richard.
Hey, how are you guys?
Hey, we're doing great. Okay, so we have some good stuff to get to today, of course. We're going to start off our show, of course, with some WG positivity. Graham, I didn't even ask you, but I think you're ready to share a story with us.
Yeah, I am. And so, I was having a meeting with a couple clients yesterday, and they were big Beatles fans. I'm a big Beatles fan. So we kind of got to talking about the Beatles, and they mentioned a story to me that I had read recently, but it didn't even occur to me before then that this would be a pretty good story for the radio.
Oh.
So I will give them a little shout out for putting that bug in my ear. I had heard of it, but maybe some people at home have heard of it too. But recently, as in I think this was a couple of weeks ago now, Paul McCartney's original violin bass, his Hofner, that was stolen in 1972, was actually found and returned in pretty good shape, which is really great. They've actually been searching for it. There's been a group called the Lost Bass Project that has been searching since 2018. And they said they got hundreds of responses. Over 600 people contacted them with some lead information about it. And they didn't really make any huge strides until 2023 when someone's grandson saw it and kind of talked to his grandma about it. And she was like, hey, actually, I think we might have something like that up in the attic.
No way.
So it turns out they didn't release the name of the person that stole it, but apparently someone stole it from their touring van in 1972 and it doesn't allude that they knew whose it was because they just sold it to a local pub owner and he put it in his attic for 51 years until it was returned. So I think Paul's pretty happy to have that back, but I thought it was cool to see a cool music history relic like that finally get found.
Oh my gosh, I love that story because I love the Beatles too.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan, and honestly, before hearing about this story, I hadn't heard that his bass was stolen because he still plays, a Hofner live. I saw him a couple years ago, and I assumed it probably wasn't the original that he's bringing around every now and then, but I didn't know that he didn't even have it, but now he does, so that's definitely really cool to hear.
Now we do. That's a cool story.
Isn't that so cool? I can't wait to tell my husband because he and his brother were huge Beatle fans too, so his brother even had all those basses and everything. Same thing, anything Paul McCartney he had. So, and he's since passed away. So we were just talking about that the other day. So I'll have to show that. Thank you for that story. I love it when, those people didn't even know they had something stolen. I bet they would have returned it a long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they would have. I thought it was nice that they didn't hold it for ransom or anything like that, because that thing's definitely worth some money. That's somebody's retirement savings right there, probably. But they were good Samaritans and gave it back, which is definitely cool to see.
Cool, positive story. Love it. All right, Cris. Now, last week we talked about Social Security, and you mentioned to me as we got started today that you'd like to maybe pick up on that conversation today.
Yeah, I do, because, we usually reference things that we see or run into in meetings, and I've had people even come in the office for second and third meetings and for client reviews, and they're like, "I heard you talking about me on the air," and we don't say the names or whatever, but we describe the situation well enough that if you know that's you, you know it's you. So today I'm going to talk about divorced spouse benefits, and the reason I'm going to bring this up is I ran into a situation this past week where this particular individual, she didn't know that she had the option to claim off of her ex. So this is why we always say that, a visit with us is very valuable. And in her case, it's incredibly valuable because it's going to make a decent amount of difference in terms of income. So to start it off is, can I draw off of my ex? And the answer is yes, if you were married for at least 10 years and you've been at least divorced for at least 2 years. So those are kind of the basic rules there. And the other question that I'll get a lot from people is, do I have to wait until my ex draws Social Security? The answer to that is no, you actually don't. But, and this is what we had to work on with this individual, the spouse must be at least age 62, and you have to be at least age 62 as well before you can file. So the ex doesn't have to be taking Social Security, but they need to be at least age 62 in order for you to draw. Now, if you the non-ex, well, would be the ex of the other side.
Yeah, the other ex.
Well, if you draw at 62, then your benefit will be reduced. So, and does it reduce their benefit? Does it hurt their benefit if you claim off their benefit? The answer is no to that as well. And then, well, how much am I eligible for? You are eligible for 50% of your ex-spouse's FRA. But remember, if you claim at 62, it will be reduced. If you wait until your full retirement age, and this is the situation that we ran into, she's actually past that, she would get the full amount because she's at least her full retirement age. So you're eligible for 50%, but if you claim early, it'll be reduced. So here's a pretty wild one. And I've never ran into this. I kind of just made this up just to kind of try to be a little bit funny on the air at the same time. But there's probably some people in this situation maybe. So we'll role play a little bit. Cris, I've been married 3 times. Can I claim off all 3 of them? And the answer is no, not at the same time. But the obvious choice here is to choose the higher of the 2, or the higher of the 3 rather. So yeah. So all right. So here's a follow-up question to that, right? So I have 3 ex-husbands. All right. What if I'm claiming off the higher earning spouse, getting my 50%, like we just talked about, and then one of my other exes dies? Can I switch to the deceased husband's Social Security if it's higher? And the answer to that is yes, you can do that for sure. So this is why we tell our clients it's really, really important to keep up with their exes to a certain degree. So jokingly, so this is a joke, you may want to call their house and say, hey, can I speak to Richard? And if the person answering the phone says, yes, hold on, please, you can just hang up because they're still alive at that point. So you know that you can't switch to the deceased, opportunity at that. So one of the big questions is, how do I file for Social Security? So you can go to ssa.gov. You can call 1-800, the 1-800 Social Security number, and actually get in touch with somebody that way. Or you can really make an appointment and go down to the local office. I would recommend that if you have, one of these kind of unique situations, or you're trying to claim off an ex, then I would probably recommend going to sit down and actually talk to someone. And you're going to have to bring some documents down there. One of the main things is you're going to have to prove that you were married and then also divorced, especially if you're trying to claim off a ex-husband there. But it's really important. And I think when this individual came into the office, I think sometimes people come into the office and they're not 100% sure what to expect. But our first meeting is pretty thorough, and we dig around a little bit. We ask a lot of questions, and because of that, I think we're able to uncover some things that can really help people. Like in the case, that I just mentioned, we were able to kind of uncover that. But it's not the first time that that's happened. This has happened a number of times, but this is fairly significant for this individual because they're going to get a fairly substantial amount of Social Security, when the opportunity comes for them to be able to claim. So it should help them out tremendously. The other thing that I want to kind of roll into now is, I met with a family yesterday, and they were really, really nice. Great conversation. We did our thorough, intake and questions like we normally do. And at the end of the first meeting, the husband looks at me and he says, hey, we were we were really nervous about coming in here to meet with you. And I kind of sat back a little bit and I said, well, tell me a little bit more. He said, yeah, we've been doing this all by ourselves for so long. And we were just worried about coming in and having this conversation. And we were worried about us not being a fit. And he just said, are we a fit for you guys? Oh. And I looked at him and I kind of felt bad that they felt that way. Huh. And so first of all, I said, yeah, when families come into the office, especially a husband and wife, I'm looking at a lot of things. They're there to interview me as well, right? Sure. So they're talking to me and they're interviewing and asking questions, and I'm doing the same. I'm asking questions as well, but I'm also paying attention to how the spouses treat each other. So if they are respectful to each other and nice and kind, and the husband's not jumping down the wife's throat or vice versa, then I look at that, because I feel like if you will disrespect your spouse in front of, an advisor or really anybody for that matter, then you're probably likely going to disrespect the staff. So that to me would be kind of a yellow flag internally. Do I want to work with this family? Do I feel like they're a good fit? So I'm looking at those types of things as well. And then obviously the opportunity, do we think we can actually add value? So if there are families out there or even individuals out there today that are listening to the show and you're worried about, being judged, because I think that's sort of kind of how they felt. They might be judged a little bit when they came in. Mm-hmm. That's not at all what we do. Like, our office is literally set up to try to help people. And even when we're not able to work directly with someone, we always try to add value and provide information that they can take with them and actually make their entire life better. So that's what we're trying to do. So at the end of our first meeting, we actually send out like summary notes of the first meeting. And in those summary notes will be a bullet point or two, sometimes 3 or 4, for a lot of the people that we meet with, that they can actually take and actually put into action while we're working on the financial plan. It may not necessarily have to do with, their IRA or their 401k or something like that. It could be something totally non-related. And I'm not going to get into what I ask in the first meeting, because that's our kind of, I won't say proprietary, but it's our types of questions that we ask families. And that's how we kind of show the value and show both individuals and families that we are really looking out. So, if you've been listening to the show now for, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, I think we're going on 8 years at this point, Luann.
Yep, we're on our 8th.
Yeah, 8.
Actually,
so please.
We're on our 9th.
I don't think it's the 9th. Oh. Maybe it's the 8th. I'll need to verify. It's 2016 when we started the radio show.
And we're on our 8th. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, we are on it. Do the math, Chris. Hello. Anyway, all right. So we'll just move on from that one. But yeah, so if you're listening to the show, been listening for a while, and you've been, wondering what's it like to go in, many people, and I can't, give references on air, but many people would probably tell you, he's the same in the office as he is on the air. And my staff's the same way. That's just the way that we like to deal with people, in a calm nature. That's, we're not ranting and screaming on the air and you've got 10 seconds to call in. We only got 2 appointments next week. You better hurry up and get on the books. That ain't the way we do it. We do full scale financial planning. We're looking at everything, and we want you to come in relaxed, and we want you leaving relaxed. And that's part of our job. You can give our office a call at 256-937-2010. Again, the number's 256-937-2010.
And the Rocket City Retirement Show returns right after this.
Do you have a retirement plan but would like a second opinion? Let Chris lift you off into retirement by calling 256-937-2010. WG Financial Group. That's 256-937-2010.
Quarters, just 25 cents. That's hardly anything, right? But Cris Wallace and his team at WG Financial see quarters a little differently. A quarter is a lot when it's a quarter of your retirement savings. Now, do you want to pay 25% or more in taxes during your retirement? Well, Chris can create a plan to help address that. Now, if the only time you think about taxes is when you file them, you don't have a tax strategy. But it's not too late to get one with the help from Cris Wallace. So act now to make sure you're not paying a quarter, dime, or even a penny more than you should. Call Cris Wallace and his team at WG Financial at 256-937-2010 to schedule your personalized tax strategy session. A quarter saved is a quarter earned. Call 256-937-2010 now. That's 256-937-2010. Investment advisory services made available through AE Wealth Management, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Firm may not give tax advice.
Want to feel confident about your financial future? Let Cris Wallace from WG Financial guide you through it. Take the first step today. WG Financial Group is here to help you plan, retire, play. Just go to WGFinancialGroup.com. That's WGFinancialGroup.com.
Hi, we're so glad that you joined us today. I'm Lou Ann Fulmer here with Cris Wallace and Graham Bauer and Richard Constantine. One thing I want to mention right now while it's on my mind is there are lunch and learns that Chris and his team are doing. So if you are a small, even a large business in town, Chris and his team would love to come to your place, provide lunch for you, educate your employees on how to prepare for retirement. So we haven't talked about this in a while. I want to make sure that you know they are offering to do this for you. All you have to do is pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I'm interested in a lunch and learn. 256-937-2010. That is the number to call. And I know, Chris and guys, you would love to get out and about, wouldn't you?
Always.
Okay. Now, Chris, you and I have often talked on this show about to-do lists, okay? And I've always teased you about your honey-do lists around the house and all that Jen has you do. So I think we can all agree, Graham, Richard, we all have our to-do list, and it's pretty long. Problem with lists is that they can kind of overwhelm you because there's so much to do, right? So what we're going to do right now is just keep it simple, and we're going to just take 3 topics of what goes into a retirement planning list that Chris and his team always talk about. And we're just going to narrow it down to those 3. So Chris, tell us about what we're going to discuss.
Well, we'll discuss income, healthcare, long-term care, and everybody's favorite word, taxes.
Heck yeah. Yeah, taxes, because you know why? We could save money, save our own hard-earned money and keep it to spend on what we want to do instead of letting the government do what they want to do. All right, why? Give me the why. Why should these topics be included when we're planning for retirement, Chris?
Yeah, so first of all, when it comes to income, we said it a lot on the show. There is no retirement without income. So if you're going to retire, you're going to need a sustainable way and a defined way to generate income from your portfolio, or as you may call it, your nest egg. And without an income plan of attack, you might as well keep working, because right now we always talk about the faucet of income on the show. That's what's providing the basically the income to provide the lifestyle that you're looking for. And I have found that working with hundreds of families throughout the years, this is a pretty big sticking point for many people. And why is it a sticking point? And for some, they just aren't sure how to take money out of the retirement plans. It sounds daunting to them. How do I do that? And they just are unclear on the steps to be able to do that. And the second thing, many people are making the most money they've ever made in their life due to being in what I call the peak earning years. And sometimes you have a really hard time of letting go of the job income because it feels really good right now. And you don't want the feeling of having to pull out of the nest egg to create your own income. So when it comes to income, those are kind of my thoughts there. And I think even if you're working today, when we get into health insurance, you probably have employer provided health insurance, mostly, through the job, they handle everything. And once you go into retirement, you actually have to set all this up. You have to make the right decisions. And frankly, it's a little bit overwhelming. And Lou Ann, I know that on previous shows with you approaching the age of 65, I'm not calling you out or anything, because you don't sound 65 or almost 65. You can understand, because we've had conversations about how your mailbox just becomes overrun with healthcare advertisements. And buy this, buy that, get this type of plan. So it can be a very, very large task. And then what do you feel like you got to do? You feel like you got to go research it, because that's all we ever do. We turn around, we go to Google or DuckDuckGo or whatever we decide to use, and we're going to research it. I'm going to make sure I make the right decision. The right decision is to get with someone who knows about this stuff and develop a solid relationship with somebody who can give you credible information instead of going down rabbit holes on the internet and reading someone else's opinion that you don't even know, because that's what we end up doing. We end up reading literature, articles, whatever, blogs, whatever you want to call them, posted by people we really don't know who they are, and they don't even know our specific situation. So I was having a conversation the other day with someone who was dead set on getting an Advantage plan, set up when they retire. And the reason for that is they're cheaper. And I was like, well, let's think about this for a second, okay? Here's some advantages of an Advantage plan and some disadvantages, okay? So an advantage of an Advantage plan is, it's cheaper. A disadvantage is you're going to be locked into a network, and you got to stay within that network. You're going to have, some additional copays. You're going to have some out-of-pocket maximums that you have to deal with. And some doctors don't take them. And so all of those to me make up a pretty good distance, but it's cheaper. Okay, well, the older we get, the more likely we are to go to the doctor. The more likely we are to need better health care because we're getting older and the body's just kind of wearing out. So, after I was able to kind of discuss what a supplement was versus an Advantage plan, their eyes started to open up. And it's my opinion, and I don't know if this is everybody's opinion out there, but the Advantage plans, they actually pay the agents more commission. So you have to wonder, do those get pushed, ahead of supplements, because supplements don't pay that much. They don't pay near what the Advantage plans pay. So you have to ask yourselves all those questions. I think you got to sit down with somebody, that you can trust and have a relationship with, and really start to get into the weeds about that, in an office, so they can look at your specific situation. When it comes to long-term care, there's a whole nother conversation. We've run into some stuff here lately where carriers are just increasing the premiums. And we may have mentioned this in the last couple of weeks, but we've had a couple of people come in and they brought the letter, and the current long-term care provider has said, hey, here's 4 different options for you to choose from. Basically, we're raising the price or going to lower your benefit. So it's not, none of the options are fantastic. They're all are not great. And so we've had a lot of people come in to have that long-term care conversation because of a letter they've got. And then, so lastly, we mentioned taxes. So I kind of want to talk about that for a quick second. It's all done for you right now. It's all, you set it up. You set up your withholdings when you get to your job and you do your paperwork. It's all done on your W-4. And then when you get into retirement, there is a strategy that can help you, reduce your taxable income. There's strategies that you can use to pull out your 401k. You can make a better Social Security claiming decision. You can develop different types of tax buckets, et cetera. So that tax portion of your retirement is really, really important. And I would say that a large majority of the listeners that come to see us have come to see us because we openly talk about there are ways to reduce the taxation on your entire retirement picture just by the way that you pull income out.
Wow, love it. Great tips there. If we are feeling a little overwhelmed by just, I'm retiring and there's just so many things I haven't done yet to prepare, what can we do, Graham?
Well, in everything in life, I think there's an aspect of feeling a little bit unprepared as, the different stages happen. I mean, we're growing up and we start with school and all of that, and maybe you have to take tests and you don't feel totally prepared for that. And, then you're maybe doing job interviews and you don't feel totally prepared for that. Or, oh, we're about to have a baby. I don't feel totally prepared to be. Well, I'm not saying that I am. I'm saying,
you were telling us something.
Yeah, that's not an announcement. That's
okay.
just,
I kind of looked across the table at Graham. I was like, did you forget to tell me something?
Yeah, believe me. Okay, not me, but plenty of other people.
Okay.
And I'm sure it'll be me once I get there. I'll feel unprepared. And, I think that's why in a lot of ways we all have some people in our lives, hopefully, that can kind of help us get more prepared, whether that's, in school, you might have a really good teacher that helps you to prepare, or, to become a parent. Maybe your parents kind of help you and give you advice, or grandparents. And, that's not there to alleviate all of your concerns, but being prepared does elicit a lot more confidence. So, I think that obviously sitting down with a planner, having a relationship with someone and having a plan built out is a fantastic way to feel more confident about your retirement and feel more prepared. But I think there are other things, outside of a planner's office you can do too. And we could help with this as well, but things just like mapping out your day, trying to figure out what exactly you're going to do in retirement, what kind of hobbies you want to pursue, how much your family wants to put up with you, and how much of the time you're going to have to find other people to be around, and, what long-term goals that you have. And, then I think we kind of help figure out, how do we get there? How do we get to that confidence level that we need to take the next step and actually retire? One person comes to mind, and he was a prospect that I sat in some meetings with, and I don't think he actually did end up becoming a client, but I do remember him coming in the first meeting, and he just sounded so down about his retirement. He kind of made it sound like he was never going to be able to retire, and he just didn't have enough saved. He's just going to have to work forever, and was very, very not confident about his retirement. And we get to the end of the process, and he had saved up a lot of money. He could very easily retire comfortably, and I think having that vote of confidence from us really, it seemed like, helped him out. Again, I don't think he's actually working with us currently, but it stuck out as, that lack of knowledge and preparation kind of led to a lot of negativity in his mind. And I think, that's one of the things we try to help people with, is getting rid of some of that negativity with saying, no, you are prepared, because look, we are helping you through all of this preparation. So when you actually go to, pull the trigger and retire, you're not going to have super low confidence about, am I going to make it? Because you're going to know that, I prepared for this, I practiced for this, and, you're ready for it.
All right. If that's you, here's the number, 256-937-2010. Call or text that number and put in visit if you do text. It's so simple. Just put the word visit in and get the discovery session complimentary. Get on their calendar, 256-937-2010, and check them out at wgfinancialgroup.com. And thank you so much for joining us. This is the Rocket City Retirement Show. I'm Lou Ann Fulmer. Now, Richard, I want to ask you this, because so many people are worried, they think they can't retire because they haven't saved enough. How do you help someone figure out that they have saved enough to retire?
Lou Ann, that's a really great question. And honestly, the best way to describe it is just that it depends. Because, at the end of the day, what might be enough for your neighbor, it might not be enough for you. It also depends on how the funds that you have saved are essentially scheduled to be taxed later on, or they've already been pre-taxed, or they've already been taxed when they initially went into their account.
Okay, so that's excellent there. Those are great questions that they need to get answered. And then, once we're in retirement, we certainly have to generate income. We can't just sit there with what we have. So talk about options for that, please.
Right. Well, and, one thing that Chris always says is that a retirement without income, it's not a retirement. And so an individual or a family does have to create some kind of income, and a few different ways. From the guaranteed side, you're going to receive a Social Security. You might be one of the lucky few that have access to a pension, and another guaranteed route is using an annuity to source income, where there's some other avenues too that we can go, and this is taking 401k or IRA distributions. And some people want to be They want to have tenants, and they can generate income via rental properties, or they can even start working a part-time job.
How is a retirement income plan different from just planning to take withdrawals from your retirement savings, Richard?
That's a good question. And, it goes back to what I said earlier about how the money is qualified for tax purposes. Another question is are the distributions going to be sustainable long-term? And finally, if you and your family are charitable in nature, are you taking advantage of QCDs and DAF strategies?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think a lot of people, we work with a lot of people who are charitable in nature, and they don't take advantage of certain strategies that they should. This is a big deficiency that we see in some of the smartest people here in Huntsville that we sat down with. They're doing a lot of things right, but they're missing the boat from a charitable perspective because they're not taking advantage of certain strategies. If you'd like to come in and set up a discovery session, you can do that by calling 256-937-2010. Again, the number is 256-937-2010.
And we'll be right back after this.
Looking to feel confident about your financial future? Let Cris Wallace from WG Financial be your guide. Begin your journey today at WGFinancialGroup.com.
Wait. Now, wait a little longer. Great. You may have just increased your lifetime income by tens of thousands of dollars. That's how Social Security can work for you. The longer you wait, the more money you may get. Deciding when to start taking your Social Security benefits is one of the most important retirement decisions you'll make. Cris Wallace and the team at WG Financial Group can show you the options and help make the right decision for you and your situation. Call them today, 256-937-2010. You spent decades paying in. Optimize what comes out.
Cris Wallace and the WG Financial Group team can help you squeeze every penny out of your Social Security benefits. Don't wait any longer. Call now, 256-937-2010. That's 256-937-2010. Investment advisory services made available through AE Wealth Management, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Firm is not affiliated with the U.S. government.
Navigating uncertain times in the volatile market? Don't make impulsive decisions. Trust the Rocket City retirement guy, Cris Wallace. WG Financial Group is here to help you plan, retire, play. Call now at 256-937-2010. That's 256-937-2010 to schedule your meeting today.
Hi, I'm Luann Fulmer. We're so glad you joined us today. We're talking today about what you need to have on your retirement planning list. And we've kind of just broken it down to really 3 main topics today because we just want to keep it simple for you. So sometimes you think you have a healthy balance in your savings account, your retirement savings account, but that doesn't mean you have an income plan. So I want to talk about that and the risks that we need to be aware of to preserve our income in retirement. Chris?
Yeah, so some of the risk I think that you have to think about, number one, most retirements out there today are going to last somewhere between, just call it 25 and 30 years for the most part. So the earlier you retire, the longer that retirement time horizon just got. So there's a big difference in retiring at 65 versus say 58. You've added 7 more years. So one of the big problems that I tell people is the earlier you retire, the more risk you carry because it's longer that your money has to support over that longer time period. I also feel like losing a lot early in retirement, especially when you're spending the most, is a big risk that a lot of people will face. We've also talked on the show a lot about sequence risk. So we don't really know. I know how we run our plans, and we're a little bit more conservative, inside the financial plan, because we don't know exactly what types of returns are going to transpire over the next, 20 to 30 years in someone's retirement. So take, for example, what if you have a decade like 1999 through 2009? Let's say that you retired and that was the first decade, which was basically no return for the S&P at that point. Well, if you think about it, it's 10 years. If the retirement time horizon is say 25 or 30 years, that's 1/3 of your retirement time horizon where the S&P was basically flat.
Right.
And there was a lot of downside risk and you're taking withdrawals. And that's the sequence risk that we often reference on the show. If you listen to other talking heads on the radio and they say, oh, you're going to get 10 or 12% long term, that's just crazy because number one, we're looking at the arithmetic return and not the geometric. That's one whole other conversation that we won't even get into today, but it's very misleading to the listener to think that they're going to get 10 or 12% every single year because they think of it, your mind automatically goes to a linear 10 or 12%, and the market doesn't work that way. So that's that whole sequence risk, and I'll kind of just hush about the sequence side. The other thing I think we have to do is, as far as risk go and, understanding risk, is we have to recognize that both stocks and bonds carry risk. And we saw that in 2022. We saw stocks go down. We saw bonds go down. We're in the middle of the worst 3-year bond bear market in history at this point. So we have to recognize that both stocks and bonds carry risk. I think we also have to recognize the risk of Social Security and making an emotional decision. That is a big risk for a lot of families. You get a lot of emotions and it's going to go bankrupt. And I think Graham has said it best on the show. People treat it like a game, and they don't want to, get gypped. And it's not just about the break even. There is a lot of thought that needs to go into Social Security from a tax perspective, longevity perspective, spousal protection perspective. There's a lot that needs to go in there. And the quicker we realize that, the more we start to realize we can improve our financial plan by making a much better Social Security decision. The other thing I think that's a risk is not having enough guaranteed income and focusing just on a withdrawal rate and returns. So a lot of people have heard about the 4% rule and rates of return and all of that. And, I think if you focus too much on the rates of return or your withdrawal rate and the rates of return, I think you can kind of derail some aspects of your retirement plan by focusing on those. And then lastly, I'll kind of wrap it up with tax efficiency. I think that, focusing on tax efficiency is really, really important because if you think about it, your plan will work better for you long term if you're able to legally keep more money in your pocket versus paying it out in taxes. And so having a nice tax strategy, I think, is great as well.
Right. So look at that list of risks that we have with our retirement money. That's a lot right there. Another risk is healthcare in retirement. We always talk about Fidelity saying that a 65-year-old couple is going to spend about $315,000 after taxes throughout retirement. It doesn't even include long-term care. So that is a whole nother risk that we have to protect our money from. What can we do to prepare for that, Graham? What do you guys help your clients with?
Healthcare can be I think it's kind of a scary thing for people to talk about in retirement because they see the big numbers like that. And, they got to make their decision on how they're going to take their Medicare, how, if they're going to do their supplement or Advantage and all of that stuff. And so it can be kind of intimidating and kind of scare people. And, whenever we talk about this number, because if you've been listening to the show, you've definitely heard us mention the Fidelity study that talked about the 65-year-old couple and the $315,000 is that, that's going to be over a pretty long period of time for your retirement. I mean, you could probably say for most people, 20 to 30 years would be a good timeline. So today, I was kind of just curious. And I was curious, if I retired today, how much would I spend in other things over the course of 20 years? So, I mean, if I retired today, let's say I was 65, I would spend close to $200,000 over the next 20 years in groceries.
Oh, wow.
And another close to $200,000 in gas. And utilities, probably a little over $50,000. And so I think when you see big numbers like that, it can be really scary. And one thing you have to remember is, you're going to be cash flowing that, it's not paid up. Maybe, I don't know, maybe people would be interested in a paid up 20-year grocery plan at today's rates if they could.
I don't know.
Because I wasn't accounting for inflation in my estimates too. So maybe that would actually be a good deal over time, if eggs are going to climb back to $5 ever. But I think all of these things, you have to think about them and you do have to plan for them. But when you see those larger numbers, it shouldn't be something that just absolutely terrifies you out of retiring because, a good bit of that $315,000, if you have Medicare A and B and a supplement is probably going to be just a lot of premiums and, maybe some prescriptions as well and other things like that, because that number is not including long-term care. But, I think one of the best things people can do if it is a really big concern, especially, if you're younger, if you're below age 65, is look into an HSA if you don't have one, even, not for just healthcare reasons, but for tax reasons, saving yourself some money. It's a great vehicle. Another thing we talk about all the time is HSA. So you've heard it before. But yeah, I would say, if you're really concerned about healthcare, that would be a great thing to start building up for some of your long-term expenses. But again, when you see these big numbers, you have to take into account the cash flow aspect of that. And, the fact that retirement for most people is a pretty long time.
Right. Now, one thing that we, probably can't cash flow or at least we should be thinking about it, and that would be addressing potential long-term care costs. Chris, we don't know what the future holds, but we certainly have to plan for that high cost, right?
Well, we do, and I think that obviously it's a risk. I think there's a study by Morningstar that says there's 70% of people are going to need some level of long-term care. Now, that doesn't mean that 70% of us are going to be in a skilled facility, but 70% of us will need some sort of care. And I think the biggest problem for I think a lot of people is just the cost. I mean, it's expensive, and that's why we are advocates of looking at it earlier than later, because the longer you decide to wait on it, the more expensive it gets. You also have much more likelihood of something happening. If you're looking at long-term care, that you have a health event, now all of a sudden you can't get it, and now you don't have it at all, and you got to self-fund or spend out of your own assets. So we're big advocates are planning for it, planning early. Again, I've heard people on the radio say, "Oh, you can wait until age 60," and we completely disagree. We think that if you're interested in something, that you should start looking at that as early as age 55, while it's cheaper, and you can go ahead and start locking in some of that premium. Sometimes you can do a 10 pay where you're done in 10 years, and you could finish it off while you're working and just kind of pay the policy in full. That way, when you retire, you don't have that expense lingering over your head. So there's a lot of different ways to look at it. There's a lot of different ways to plan for it. But we just encourage families, especially again on the younger side, to start thinking about that as of today.
Okay, 256-937-2010. If you need some guidance, if you want to talk about your plan for long-term care, health care, and retirement, you want to check out those options for that, give them a call. You can even text the word VISIT, 256-937-2010. And remember, you can always check us out at wgfinancialgroup.com. And thanks for joining us. This is the Rocket City Retirement Show. I'm Luann Fulmer. Okay, so... question about taxes again. How often do people overlook taxes as they're planning for retirement? Is that a big overlook thing?
So I wouldn't say it's overlooked. I would say that it's not planned for accordingly. And I'll give you some examples. Mm-hmm. So you have what's known as the marginal rates, and then you have something that's known as your effective tax rate. So the effective tax rate is really the average dollar that you're paying across all of your income, and the marginal rates are, at what rate the last dollar pulled is taxed at. So you have two different types of rates that we're talking about here. The majority of people that I will meet with, they're engineers. I would say 80-90% of our clients are engineers. And spoiler alert, right? Huntsville, that's all that's here, right? So anyway, they'll bring in their spreadsheets and they will be using a tax calculation off the marginal rate. So it's usually way too high in some cases. In some cases, they, maybe trying to make a decision to pull from an account where they're not going to be taxed. And there is a point, depending on your income situation, depending on like if you have just Social Security, there is a point where you can pull from qualified sources meaning your pre-taxed assets like your IRA, and not have to pay federal tax on it under a certain limit, depending on how much you pull out of there. So we think it's important that you look at taxes and not just take for granted that you're going to pay and that you're just going to pay the marginal rate, because most people aren't going to be in the marginal rate of 24 in retirement. That's a lot of income that's coming in. Now, you could be, right, if you're doing Roth conversions and all that, but what I'm talking about is just the basic living expenses. The vast majority of people listening to the show today are going to be in the 12 to 22 marginal rate, but they're not going to be paying 22% on every dollar that they pull. They may be paying 22% on some of the last dollars that they pull, but the effective or the average rate of tax is going to be much less than that. And that's usually confusing for some. And then some people get that, but there are a lot of people out there listening to the show right now. They don't really understand the difference in the two, and they just automatically assume they're going to be taxed at a higher rate. And I want to go back, and I do want to touch on the segment about healthcare and where Graham was answering it. Uh-huh. We've had this happen in the office before, where people will come in and they'll say, "Well, I'm retiring at 65," and I know why they're saying 65. So I'll ask them. I'll say, "So why 65 and not 63? It looks like you have enough assets." And they'll say, "Well, I don't want to pay healthcare. Healthcare is going to be very expensive." And I just want to remind you, if you're listening to the show today, there are ways for people to retire before 65 and obtain healthcare at a very economical and reasonable rate by going to the exchange. And there's, subsidies that you can pick up and have healthcare to kind of bridge you through to 65. So there are a lot of people that have come into the office that wanted to retire at 65, and they're now retiring before 65 because we're able to show them how they can do that by just utilizing what's available today to every one of us, listening to the show today. So that's part of our planning process. And we get into the healthcare, we ask a lot of questions, and we go over some options with you that can help you get out early if you want to get out. If you'd like to sit down and kind of go over our planning process and for us to take a look at your situation, you can give us a call at 256-937-2010. Again, the number's 256-937-2010.
And we'll be right back with the Rocket City Retirement Show right after this.
Do you have a retirement plan but would like a second opinion? Let Cris lift you off into retirement by calling 256-937-2010. WG Financial Group. That's 256-937-2010.
Quarters, just 25 cents. That's hardly anything, right? But Cris Wallace and his team at WG Financial see quarters a little differently. A quarter is a lot when it's a quarter of your retirement savings. Now, do you want to pay 25% or more in taxes during your retirement? Well, Cris can create a plan to help address that. Now, if the only time you think about taxes is when you file them, you don't have a tax strategy. But it's not too late to get one with the help from Cris Wallace. So act now to make sure you're not paying a quarter, dime, or even a penny more than you should. Call Cris Wallace and his team at WG Financial at 256-937-2010 to schedule your personalized tax strategy session. A quarter saved is a quarter earned. Call 256-937-2010 now. That's 256-937-2010. Investment advisory services made available through AE Wealth Management, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Firm may not give tax advice.
Experience comprehensive investment and wealth management at WG Financial Group. Our tailored services cater to pre-retirees and retirees with a range of portfolio managers. We cater to your specific needs from passive to active strategies. WG Financial Group is here to help you plan, retire, and play. Reach out to us at 256-937-2010 to schedule your meeting today.
And we are back. Thank you for joining us. I'm Lou Ann Fulmer. Just as a reminder, of course, I'm here with Cris Wallace, president of WG Financial Group, Graham Bauer, relationship advisor, Richard Constantine is certified financial planner. And Richard, I'm so excited. We kind of have a new thing we're going to highlight every week on our show, and it's going to be called Richard's Recap. Tell us a little bit about it, because it has to do with just maybe people that you've met with the week prior, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So Chris and I, we wanted to kind of share some thoughts that that can be applicable to a lot of people from things that we're commonly seeing inside of the office. And so we wanted to have a section on our show that talked about it.
Awesome. Okay, take it away. Richard's Recap. Let's hear it.
Yeah. So the first part of this is it's going to be unfinancial related. One of our clients who I met with last week, he's lived on a golf course for 17 years. And every time I'm driving the golf cart around the course, I've always wondered, like, man, how many times has a ball shattered their window and just ruined their breakfast?
True. I bet. Yeah. You do wonder that.
Seriously, because as a former college baseball player, my golf shots go far, but I have no idea where they're going. And,
no aim, huh?
Yeah, I've caused a lot of damage out there, unfortunately. So... he's lived there for 17 years, and he told me that only one golf ball has ever broken their window.
Oh my, that's pretty good odds.
Just one?
Only one. And
I need to play out there.
There you go, Chris. There you go.
I've played the course that he lives on before, and I was shocked. I thought the number was going to be about 3 to 4 a year. And so if you're considering moving to a golf course during retirement, the risk of breaking a window is actually smaller than you might think.
Okay, good to know.
I wonder, so let me ask this question, because this is actually kind of cool. This course, and don't say the name, but is it a higher end course or is it more of a low end course? Because I would argue that if you lived on a low end golf course, you have people like me playing out there looking for cheap golf because I'm not any good. And a matter of fact, the balls cost more than my round of golf because I have to bring so many of them. So is this a higher end or lower end golf course?
It is a higher end course.
Yeah, you got better players playing out there. That's why it's one.
That's it.
Yeah. I would love to know the numbers on this. I know you're data analytics, Richard, so maybe you can dig up some research on if you live on a low end golf course, do you get more broken windows?
I'll start going around and door knocking around and asking. How about that?
Yeah, well, that's how they collect some of the inflationary data. So what the heck?
That's so funny. Oh, okay. So anyway, continue, Richard, please.
Okay, but now on a more relevant note, one thing that we wanted to talk, and we've been seeing this, is clients have excess cash that is not currently earning them any interest. And what I mean by that is, for example, if you have $100,000 at a local bank and they're only paying you 0.1%, right? So you're generating roughly $100 a year in interest. Well, we have access for our clients where they can earn almost 5% on their money, and the funds are still liquid, which alleviates the problem with putting lots of money inside of CDs. And it also, creates, in that same example, putting $100,000 in that account at 5%, you're going to generate $5,000 in essentially free income. And why that might not seem like a ton, for a couple who's living on $8,000 a month, right? So $96,000 a year, they worked for their their life, they are drawing, $6,000 a month in Social Security. So they need $2,000 a month to supplement their living expenses from their Social Security amount. Right. Well, that $5,000 annually that you're generating, I mean, that's equivalent to roughly 20% of the annual withdrawal amount that you're going to pull. And so people are not currently taking advantage of what is available to them in this current higher interest rate environment than we've seen in the past 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that has to do with just habit, right? So we're just so in tune with how we do things. And I think what you're referencing, with people just poking money into savings accounts, and they have these large 6-figure balances just sitting there earning very little on the money that's there. And I think a lot of that has to do with just, hey, that's what I've done for 30 years. I've just put it in there and I've saved it. And now we're in an interest rate environment, as you're mentioning, Richard, where you can actually take some of your cash, and we call it sleep good money, and still put it in a position where you can sleep good, but make a lot more interest on it.
Right, exactly. And so we just want to, make sure our clients and our listeners are aware that there are opportunities to earn actually, significant amount of interest in our eyes on their funds instead of just sitting it, essentially doing nothing. So.
Right. So awesome. Thank you for that recap.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Great advice that you're passing on to your clients and then now to us on the airwaves. We really appreciate that. If you have any questions, 256-937-2010 is the number to call. You can text the word visit to get on their calendar as well. Remember, it's a complimentary discovery session. And Cris and this awesome team would love to meet you, and you can go in and visit with Cris and, get some of your questions solved, and anything that we talk about on our show, you can also reference when you go there. The other thing you can do is head to our website too, head to the Facebook page, WG Financial Group 256, because a lot of things that we talk about here on the show will be referenced there. So, gosh, thank you for that, Richard. And you're listening to the Rocket City Retirement Show. I'm Lou Ann Fulmer. So, all right, I want to talk about just what economists are saying right now, that there are red flags signaling another possible recession this year. We talked about this at the end of last year, Cris. It's been, 15 years since 2008 when we did have the financial crisis then. But economists are saying we're about ready to go into a recession again. So I just wanted to get your reaction to that.
I don't see it.
Tell us.
Yeah.
Preach it.
So I'm looking at the show notes, and, this article was in there for, show prep and show notes. And so I clicked on it, and I guess it's the economist David Rosenberg says that there's an 85% chance the U.S. economy will go into a recession in 2024. Okay. So I don't know. I don't see it. I'm looking at consumer spending. I'm looking at money supply falling off. I'm looking at money velocity, GDP, and all of those indicators are, still pretty strong. That not that we have this roaring economy. I think I read somewhere that Kramer said roaring economy. It's not that I feel like we have a roaring economy, but I definitely don't. It don't feel like a recession, right now. So again, just kind of looking at the indicators out there, I'm not really seeing it now. These negative Nellies that are out there that are always calling for a recession are sometimes going to be right. At one point, they're going to be right. It's kind of like I like to say a broke clock is right twice a day. One of these people that are just screaming recession, they're eventually going to be right. But again, from our perspective, nothing today is screaming recession. If anything, I wonder if we saw the recession in 2022. And you always have to be mindful of what's taken place in the last 4 years. And we've gone through a pandemic, right, with COVID. We all were a part of that horrible situation. But there was a ton of liquidity pumped into the market. And there are so many side hustles that people are doing today. They're doing the Lyft, the Uber Eats, and they're doing, they're working their normal job. And then they're going and doing these little side hustles. And we're still spending a lot of money, and consumer spending is about 70% of the U.S. economy. So when that starts to tail off, then that's when I will become a little bit more concerned. As long as that consumer spending chart still shows an upward trend, this thing ain't slowing down right now. And for these people to keep saying that, it's almost like it's clickbait, right? Because there's a lot of people out there that just thrive off negative media. And you watch this and or listen or read this, and you click on it, it's like, I'm not seeing it. Now, I'm not saying that we won't have it, but man, we're in a lot better position today than we were back in 2022. And like I said, I almost feel like we went through a market recession in 22. That's the way that I feel. They wouldn't label it a recession, and we all have our opinions on that, why they wouldn't label it. But unemployment's still really low, and it's just, it's staying really low. Consumer spending. So, I mean, I don't know, Luann. That's kind of my thoughts.
Yeah, very interesting.
But it's people like this. Honestly, I'm gonna get off my soapbox in a minute. It's people like this right now that hurt other people. Mm-hmm. So, say for an example, you're a more fear-driven person, which I am. I don't like roller coasters. I don't like heights. I don't like spiders. I've had a lot of people come in the office and poke fun at me for all those things. But so let's just say you're more of a fear-driven person. Let's say that you're newly retired and you're worried about losing money. Then you read an article like this, and all of a sudden it just grabs a hold to you. Yeah. And it feels like, oh my gosh, I'm terrified. And now this economist, has come out and said there's going to be a recession, and I believe him because now he's an economist and he's got an article in Business Insider, so he has to be right. He knows something that we don't know. So I'm going to go to cash. And
see? Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what happens, right? So you look at 2022, when we had the downturn, there were a lot of people in 2022 that went to cash. Mm-hmm. And we had very, very few within our client base go to cash, which I'm thankful for that. That means we were doing our job educating and advising people correctly. So you go to cash in 2022, and then you didn't get back in. And what happens in 2023? Market's up 25, 26%. Mm-hmm. Okay. So now you missed all that bounce back. All right. And now you're in 2024, you're still in cash. And now you read an article like this. And what happens is mentally you keep thinking, well, it's coming. It's coming. Honey, I know, we're going to be protected, baby. We got our money in savings. It's all in cash and we're all protected. Meanwhile, the market just continues to go up and you're totally missing out on opportunity. There is a statistic, and I don't have it in front of me. I will pull it and have it one of the shows coming up. The longer you sit in cash, the more it hurts you because the better percentage chance you have of the market outperforming cash over the long haul. Just look at last year. If you sat in cash, so what? Let's say you sat in cash at 5%. Market's up 25, 26%. Now, I'm not at all saying that every retiree needs to be invested 100% of the stocks. I'm just merely making the point that sometimes when we're retired, there's this emotional shift that I've talked about quite a number of times on the radio. You go through a lot of emotions. You become very emotional about the savings. And sometimes you make bad decisions because you're getting bad advice from people that you don't even know, who don't know you. They don't know your specific situation. So all of that to say, Luann, when someone comes into our office, it is a very safe place to have a conversation about your situation and allow us to put our eyes on your situation. And believe me, we're a more conservative firm. Our return profiles that we run are more conservative. My COLAs on Social Security, they're more conservative. So we're purposeful in how we build financial plans and the conservative nature in which we do that. So just understand, when you come in the office, it is a safe place for us to have a conversation about your entire retirement plan and will allow us to really provide what we consider clear direction for your financial future. Of course, it is going to be a little bit opinion-based because it's our opinion, but it is going to be on the more conservative side, but it's not going to be on the fear-driven side. I'm not going to try to tickle your fear emotion to try to get you to do something by causing you to be afraid. That's just not the way that we do it. And because of that, that's why our business has grown dramatically here in Huntsville. So Luann, Richard, Graham, awesome to have you guys here. We're going to wrap it up. If you'd like to give us a call to set up a discovery session, you can do that by calling 256-937-2010. Again, the number's 256-937-2010. I hope everybody has an awesome and blessed week. And remember to serve every person in every situation with a servant heart.
Investment advisory products and services made available through AE Wealth Management, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Insurance products are offered through the insurance business WG Insurance Services. WG Financial Group is an investment advisory practice that offers products and services through AE Wealth Management, LLC, a registered investment advisor. AEWM does not offer insurance products. Insurance products offered by WG Insurance Services are not subject to investment advisor requirements. AEWM and WG Insurance Services are not affiliated companies. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual's situation. WG Financial Group is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by WG Financial Group. This radio show is a paid placement.